Right, we are going to do Unit 1, which is called Global Prehistory. I'm showing you an image of your cover sheet. So we're going to start with this by taking just a few notes about this Unit 1. So the idea of prehistory just refers to the time before written records. So all of the information that we have about this are hypothesis, guesses, right? Educated guesses. I love this quote from Smart History. It says, humans make art. We do this for many reasons and with whatever technologies are available to us. But can we really know what such ancient images originally meant? Right. So everything that we are gathering from this, scientists have and art historians have come up with that are theories. So we're going to be doing prehistory, and then we're going to be doing our Pacific unit next. All right, this is on your cover sheet. I just want to talk about the bottom. So how does art provide clues for understanding a culture and its history when we have nothing else to investigate? Because there's no written record from these time periods. So there's 3 periods of the Stone Age prehistory. There's Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. So Paleo is old, Meso is middle, and then Neo is new. So if you want to write that on that cover page. And then what ends this is the use of tools. So people learning to use iron and bronze on a large scale. That's what ends the prehistoric period. You're going to see a lot these terms BC at an artwork or BCE. So BC refers to before Christ, and then BCE refers to before Common Era. So people always used to say this was an artwork that was BC, but now that we are just becoming more globally aware, we are changing our language and saying BCE, before the Common Era. All right, so Latin terms, that's what those terms mean, if you want to write that down. All right, for Paleolithic art, there's 2 basic art forms. You're going to have cave and rock paintings of animals, and then we are going to have mobility art, and that's characterized as something small that would have been carried around for some sort of sacred purpose. All right, first artwork, number 1. This is called the Apollo 11 stones from Namibia, which is in Africa. 20, you guys can see the years, and then BCE, Paleolithic, and this is charcoal on stone that has then been broken into 2 pieces. So we're just going to talk about the visual characteristics or the form. Also, just so you guys know about the dates, radiocarbon dating on the dirt is what gives these artwork their dates. We don't need to write that. All right, so our animal is shown in profile because by being shown in profile, it gives you the most information on that animal. If you just showed the front view, it wouldn't be as informative for us. Function, we are assuming this is something ritualistic or symbolic, right? There's got to be some sort of important reason why it was put on this tablet. This would be considered a type of mobility or portable art. It would have been carried around, which therefore implies it was important. All right, our context, this helps support the theory that human existence began in Africa, because this is one of the oldest artifacts found, and it is in Africa. This was found in a rock shelter that had other paintings and engravings of animals. And why is it called Apollo 11? That's just coincidental because of the date. This was discovered on the day of NASA's successful moon landing, but we don't need to know that. That's just interesting. All right, College Board questions. The culture that created the work can be characterized as A, B, C, or D. So pause and read them. If you said B, you were correct. Archaeological evidence suggests that the culture that painted the Apollo 11 stones was most likely composed of groups of mobile hunters and gatherers for whom portable art such as these stones would have been appropriate. Good job. All right, archaeological evidence from the site where the work was found had led scholars to suggest that the original audience lived in which of the following locations? A, B, C, or D? And here's the answer. It is A. Archaeological evidence suggests the original audience for Apollo 11 stones lived in an ongoing settlement that included places with ritual significance. In addition to the rock shelter where Apollo 11 stones were found, the site also includes cave paintings and engravings of animal forms along the banks of the riverbed made by different individuals over many thousands of years. This evidence has led scholars to suggest that the site had ritual significance over a long period of time. So that is how and why we come to these assumptions. All right, number 2, Great Hall of the Bulls in Lascaux, France. in Europe. Paleolithic and pigment on rock. All right, let's discuss the visual characteristics. So these are being described as a twisted perspective or a composite pose. And this is a art history vocabulary term that's going to come up again, especially when we look at Egyptian figures. If you think about how awkward Egyptian figures are portrayed, they've got like their feet to the side, shoulders facing forward, head in profile to the side. That's kind of how they're describing these animals as well. These are considered more naturalistic than the Apollo 11 stones. So think about why. So these are overlapping. So if you look at a herd of animals in real life, you would see them overlapping. They're actually depicting movement in these animals. There's more colors, very naturalistic. This one almost looks like it's depicting the dots of the fur or maybe a pattern on the animal. The way the paint was applied, it was sprayed or swabbed on, right? They got their airbrush guns and started spraying it. Now they actually made tubes with bones, and they would have put the pigment in their mouth and sprayed it through those bones. So if you'd like to pause here and read the technique. So they have all these handprints doing this technique. It's not a print, it's actually a stencil. They would have sprayed around their hands. It's like an early form of graffiti tagging saying, I was here. I was here. All right. Oh, there's a good image of what I was trying to describe. All right, paint was made from local minerals, mostly sprayed through tubes made of bones or plant materials. And then they might have used fur, hair, or plants to kind of create paintbrushes. Never mind, no evidence of paintbrushes. I mean, they have swabbed on the fur. All right, so how would we compare these 10 years apart? 10,000 years apart. Differences. So we talked about being more realistic, naturalistic. They also use the contours of the walls. I have a good picture. Here it is. So you can see how the wall, kind of comes out right there. And they're using that to help shape the animal. Enhances the 3D qualities. If you don't know what contour means, that's the definition of contour. Expanded their color palette. They're not just using charcoal. Some images are entirely linear, and then some images are solid and blended colors. So that's a huge artistic leap. Some lines are actually carved into the rock. All right. Reoccurring theme throughout art history is seeing the tradition in art continue, and then the traditions in art start to change. So artworks either employ tradition or embody departure. We need to understand how and why. All right, why did they go into this dark cave and paint these? So it could be depicting rituals. What was the artist's intent? Showing a connection between mortal and spiritual realms. These are hypotheses, scholars' beliefs. All right, they also believe that these were depicted at different times. They weren't all done at the same time. What's important to know is that they are creating the pigment out of animal fat. And no, sorry, not the pigment. They were using the animal fat to help burn the torches. That's what they're using for their light. Sorry about that. So that's a really important resource, right? They need this to actually survive, to eat. So they're using this incredibly important resource to burn a light so that they can create art. So it had to have been important somehow. And here's a depiction of how they believe there's holes in the wall. So they believe they would have put scaffolding into the holes in the caves. So they used animal fat to both light the torches, I was right, and mix the paint. Big resource was used. Fat means calories. This means survival. So what does this say about the claim that survival was Paleolithic man's paramount concern? It's false. These paintings were important enough to crawl through tight, dark spaces, to lie, kneel, or stand for hours and give up a resource that might mean the difference of living or dying. All right, the detail shown of a painting from another French cave demonstrates an early interest in naturalism through which of the following characteristics? Presentation of the animals using twisted perspective, the inclusion of heavy outlines to define the full form of each animal, the staggered arrangement of the animal, so some animals are placed behind others, the stylized patterning, which is used to evoke the animal's distinctive characteristics. And the answer is C, so the overlapping. They described overlapping in a different way. Correct. The detail shown of the painting demonstrates an early interest in naturalism through the staggered arrangement of the animals. Some animals are placed one behind the other, creating an effect of recession in space. This placement suggests an artistic interest in naturalistic space. Although many theories exist to explain the overlapping forms of the animals in the Great Hall of the Bulls at Lascaux, some scholars have interpreted the repeated images as evidence of A, continuous narration with the forms being repeated to show an ongoing sequence of events, B, physical challenges because the artists were painting in total darkness before the invention of oil lamps, C, ritual activity, perhaps to ensure successful hunting of the animals depicted on the cave walls, D, funerary practices, since each animal appears to mark the grave of a different individual. So take an educated guess here. Which one do you think it is? And the answer is C. So I would add that to your notes. One of the oldest interpretations of the overlapping forms is that they represent a kind of hunting magic with forms repeated most often in the areas of the cave, deemed to be most effective in determining a successful hunt. Two commonly accepted interpretations of the paintings in the Great Hall of the Bulls at Lascaux, that they depict images relating to hunting and that they depict A, the connection between the mortal and the spiritual realms, B, the symbolic representation of a battle against enemy forces, C, maps of conquered territories with their distinctive features, D, records of ancestral lineage written throughout the use of pictographs. And the answer is A. I said that in this PowerPoint. You can read the reason why. Pause it. All right, number 3, the camelid sacrum in the shape of a canine. You can just call it the camelid sacrum. This is from Mexico. It's from Mexico. And this is made out of bone. All right, visual characteristics. What are we looking at? We need to know that this is small, therefore portable. So this would be considered portable art that is not painted on a cave wall. This is made from a camelid's sacrum bone. So we're going to talk about what the sacrum bone is. The holes were carved into a snout. So it's not just they found a bone and then we think it's important. We do realize that a human altered the bone in some way. So they altered it by making the holes in the snout. Function. Why is this made? We believe there is spiritual significance because of them using the sacrum bone. It is depicting a dog. This bone is considered sacred because of proximity to reproductive organs. So anything dealing with reproductive anything deals with fertility. Fertility is something very sacred because they need to continue their people, right? Birth and fertility. It's our favorite F word in this class, fertility. There you go. The basic form of the camelid sacrum in the shape of a canine, dog, from prehistoric Mexico was most likely determined by the A, natural shape of the animal bone into which it was carved, the B, sacred status to give canine animals in ancient Mesoamerica, C, desired function of the object as a ceremonial headdress, or D, influence of imagery found in other examples of ancient Mesoamerican art. And the answer is A. The camelid sacred bone has a natural shape that lends itself to the creation of an object that suggests the head of a canine or similar animal. This practice of allowing the form or the shape of the material guide the subject matter is a common occurrence in prehistoric art. It's saying this basically looks like a dog. Let's just put some holes here and then it's going to be a dog because that's what the shape is already alluding to. All right, number 4, running horned woman in Africa, Algeria in Africa. Pigment on rock. Visual characteristics. She is also in a composite pose. We've heard this already. It's twisted perspective or composite pose. That is multiple views of the figure in the same representation. So it's like she's sideways, but you can see her arms like straight on, right? So that's the twisting of the body. Also, maybe it looks like 2 eyes here, but her head could be turned. All right, her torso and legs are in profile, shoulders, arms, and horns from the front. These are the horns up here. Twisted perspective. All right, we are depicting movement, just like in the caves of Lascaux with those bulls. And also we're implying movement by diagonal lines. I always tell my art students, if they want to make an artwork more active and engaging, they've got to have a diagonal line in there. Really amazing job with the overlapping fabric. This is exquisite. Function. Why are we doing this? We believe this is ritualistic because this was found in a very hard to access place inside of a cave. Content, what are we meaning here? The horns typically represent strength. This could be depicting a goddess. The white dots could be scarification, because if you look at people from this area, this is something how they decorate their body. So could be what they are depicting. That is a belief. All right, so the background. This is made in the Sahara Desert in a cave. This desert that we know of as being desert-like once had water. There's other paintings in these caves that depict water animals like alligators. I believe there's one that has alligators. So this is actually documenting climate change. All right, I said horns are typical symbol for strength and associated with the gods. These are actually other artworks from our image sets from our 250 that also do the same thing. And from our contemporary art unit. Does anyone know the artist that made this? She's one of my favorites. This is Wangechi Mutu, right? And so she's depicting almost her running horn woman wearing this sort of grass dress and her stiletto heels and then the horns. Okay, in the painting of the running horn woman from Tassilier in Algeria, the impression of movement is conveyed primarily through the use of, read it. And the answer is diagonal lines. Diagonal lines in a visual composition generally suggest movement and add an element of dynamism. All right, number 5, bushel with ibex motifs from Susa, Iran. This is painted terracotta. So terracotta is fancy for clay. All right, compare and contrast. So look at this animal on the left. Look at the bulls from the cave of Lascaux. How would you compare these? How are they different? It's really important here. So the bushel with ibex motif, this animal is stylized, right? That is not a naturalistic looking animal. So that is an example of stylized looks like. Here's another example if you're taking the elephant and the donkey and then stylizing it into this logo. So naturalistic on the bottom, stylized on the top. All right, function. It's a vessel, but these were buried with the dead. Why? Let's see, geometric elements echo the shape of the object. So this is describing like these birds on the top have this really elongated neck, kind of pulling up the form of the vessel. Same thing with these dogs wrapping around the band. So they are stretched out horizontally. You can see where I'm pointing right here. All right, Neolithic period. People are no longer nomadic. They're no longer traveling around. They are staying put. So they need pottery. All right, the work shown from Susa, Iran includes patterns that can best be described as organic, naturalistic, elongated, or geometric. The answer is geometric. This combines repeated lines and hard-edged shapes such as circles and triangles to create a bold geometric surface pattern design. Steely. All right, anthropomorphic stele is number 6. So this word, we're going to see this again in a few of our artworks, and there's a couple different ways to pronounce it, but we're going to go with stele. Stele. This is from Arabia Peninsula, 4th millennium BCE, and this is sandstone. All right, so this is a stylized depiction of a human, right? It's a person, but it's not naturalistic, stylized. Relief means if you have something flat and you are carving into the surface to make something come out of the surface. So this space here was carved. This space here was carved to make these spaces raise up in relief. This is a low relief. Anthro equals human-like. So this person is human-like. Function, this likely was a grave marker. So therefore the function was a funerary purpose. Content and meaning. Stele means vertical stone monument inscribed with relief. All right, this is one of 3 of these discovered in this region in Iran, and they are all very similar. Oh, that's all I got. Okay. Sorry, this is the shortened version. So I have a lot of information on all these artworks, but That's okay. All right. This looks like Kong, but it is Song. So I wrote that up there for you guys. So this is the Jade Song from China, Neolithic, and this is carved jade, which is a type of stone. Visual characteristics. This has incised. So all these lines have been incised, made by abrasion. So the way that this was carved, it wasn't carved using a tool. It was taking sand and rubbing the sand to make these marks. And that's because the stone, this type of material, this jade, no tool is stronger than it. So they didn't have a tool to carve into it. There's a whole bunch of these, and these come in all different sizes. They have a square exterior and then hollow circular interior. And then these have been described as monster faces on the corners. All right, why? Why do we have a whole bunch of these? We definitely believe there's a funerary purpose because these were found buried with other items called B or bi. All right, so the round, they also believe this is very symbolic. The round interior is symbolic for the heavens. The rectilinear, right, the square-like exterior is symbolic for the earth. And they believe this because of later artifacts that have also been discovered. So it represents a type of duality. Lots of them found in graves with bi. I used to have a picture. I'll find it later. All right, we're going to Stonehenge. This is in the UK. This is sandstone. What's the meaning of Stonehenge? All right, so lith means stone. Trilithon, right? We know what tri means. It's 3. Trilithon are 2 posts. Posts are vertical with a horizontal lintel. So posts vertical, lintels horizontal. So here's an example. Post, lintel. What's the meaning of Stonehenge? Important. We believe these are important due to the amount of time and labor that was invested into making these. These are really heavy stones, and they didn't have the technology that we have today to move these stones from as far as where they moved them. So this is definitely a sacred, important place. We just don't exactly know why. There's beliefs. It was made in 3 different phases. There are some human remains that show signs of sickness and function. So there's blue stones that they believe had healing powers. This would have been a pilgrimage site for the sick. It's also a sort of calendar that marks the rising of the sun on the summer solstice. So when it's the summer solstice, it goes perfectly through one of the henges. All right, Stonehenge was initially created by a Neolithic culture that can best be described as, go ahead and read it. Pause it, read it. Here's the answer. B. Stonehenge was initially created by a Neolithic culture that can best be described as a society of early farmers who lived in nearby agricultural settlements. The main building phases of Stonehenge were completed during the late Neolithic period by early farmers who lived in small settlements. Next. Although the function of Stonehenge has been debated by scholars, newer evidence suggests it may have acted as, pause it, the answer is D, a center for healing, pilgrimage and healing of the sick. And they believe this because of remains that were buried. Okay, go ahead and read that. Next. The Ambum Stone. This is from Papua New Guinea. This is a gray whack. That's the type of stone. All right, visual characteristics. This is very small. So this would be a type of portable art, about 8 inches. The arms are actually wrapped around a hollow space. Very stylized features. Why? Possibly what this could be depicting, we believe, is an anteater. The context or the background after Western colonization lost their potency. What does that mean? After Western colonization, the people lost their potency, I believe. They took away everything sacred to them. This functioned as a mortar and pestle, like actually grinding up some food or some spices inside of his belly. And then the function of the object would have changed over time. Okay, physical properties of the Ambum Stone have led scholars to propose which of the following theories about the work. It must have transported via a long distance through trade network. It must have held special value for its owner because creating it would have been extremely time consuming. It must have been heavily used in its original context. because some areas of the work show significant wear from repeated grinding action, and it most likely formed a part of a larger sculptural program from a temple excavated nearby. Definitely not D. We could rule that one out. B is correct. The Ambum Stone stands out through its extraordinary sculptural quality, which includes well-defined and carefully crafted details. Given the Neolithic technology available to the Society of Ancient Papua New Guinea, who created this work, and the extremely hard and difficult shape nature of the stone it was made from, sculpture must have been extremely time-consuming to make using the type of stone tools that would have been available to the artist. Scholars have therefore theorized the stone likely held special value with its owners because that of an ordinary everyday object. Oh, the Tlatelolco female figurine from Mexico, from Tlatelolco. Painted ceramic. There's only one more after this. All right, visual characteristics. What are we seeing? So this is small, type of portable art, about 3 inches, probably fit in your hand. Very stylized through exaggerated proportions. There are 2 faces, and they actually share the third eye. And then if you guys look at the mouth, those have also been theorized as being eyes as well. All right, so meaning they believe that this could express duality. So some ideas of duality, good and evil, heaven and earth, day and night, life and death. Background information. This is before the Aztec people in Mexico. There were hundreds of these found, some of them with double faces. Some of them, the faces are conjoined at the neck. I think I have a picture of some of them. These were buried under the floors of houses. Most likely an offering to go with the deceased because of it being found buried. And here's some different, here's one that shares a face. These ones are all singular faces. This is from Chicago, but they all have very similar body structures. There's all the extra faces. And then here's a quote for you guys. Art is the signature of civilizations, right? When nothing else is left behind, we have no written record. We just have this art and these images, and we have to decipher meaning about these people from what's left behind. There should be one more. Oh, here it goes. The work shown was created by, so that artwork was created by Tlatelolco culture. Scholars believe that the work was used for which of the following purposes? Go ahead and read these. And the answer is D. Scholars believe Tlatelolco female figurines was likely used as an offering to accompany the deceased in burial because the figurine was excavated from a grave or it had been buried with a large quantity of other objects. Last one, number 11, terracotta fragment from Lupita. This is the Solomon Islands, and this is incised terracotta. Remember, fancy clay, making marks into the clay. All right, travel migrations are known because of these fragments being found. So from here, we're actually going to go to the Pacific unit where these fragments would have traveled to. So this is depicting the Pacific ancestors to the Pacific Islands. All right, what we're seeing are repeating geometric patterns, stamped and incised. So incised is basically drawing and making marks, right? Stamping is where you're taking a tool and then pressing, pushing into that surface. Same sort of tools that they would have used in tattooing, which is also an important art form in the Pacific Islands. All right. Oh, sorry. Whoop. The artist from the Neolithic Lupita culture who created these terracotta fragments decorated the surface of the ceramic by, so you're looking at the image on the right, applying a red slip, painting linear designs, arranging tiny stone squares using a 3-phase firing process. The answer is A. The decoration of the ceramic of the Lupita culture frequently involves creating a red, smooth surface by applying a liquid clay slip to the unfired clay. The slip was made by mixing clay and minerals such as iron oxide with water. The potter would apply the red slip to the surface of a still unfired pot, then add the incised or stamped patterns. So that's how this one's made with the red on top. Boom, done.